Hey guys, welcome to the after show for Houdini and Doyle. Today we're going to talk about episode 9, Necrophone. And can we call the dead?
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
All right, we're dialing. Ready? And we're calling. It's the phone connecting.
Ooh.
Ready? No, okay. Hey guys, welcome to the after show for Houdini and Doyle. Today we're talking about episode 9, Necrophone. My name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's Karidlane. And I'm joined by my lovely Studley co-hosts. Go ahead, guys.
So sweet. Love this show. My name is Ty Matthews. Y'all can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Ty Matthews PMA, as well as various other after shows, most of them wrestling related, some of them magic related. You know the drill.
There you go, yes. For some reason, all I can think of was like that rap lyric, the necrophone that I am holding. Who knows? Hey guys, when I'm not rapping, my my freestyling skills, you can follow me on Twitter at HappyGoJackie. And guess what, guys? I'm Frank Moran.
All right, I have my facts back, guys. I have them now. Okay, so we'll go through these because I had a bunch to make up for last week then. Okay, so one, I was like, wait, what was the name of the doctor that was like the influence? Is Joseph Bell, so there's no name influence there. But there were people that Doyle met that were someone Sherlock and a Holmes in their names. So way back when, Houdini opened a magic school, but only had one student, an elderly escaped convict, who was soon returned to the authorities.
Oh, man.
That seems so amazing that he had a school and then nobody came.
Why isn't that the TV show?
But that was early on.
Okay.
So, but that's funny. All right, and then we kind of talked about this last week. Houdini almost gave up and sold his secrets to a newspaper. No one bought his secrets.
Well, when your only student was an elderly escaped convict, you're like,
Yes.
oh,
There's not much demand there.
And then lockpicks is your thing, but handcuffs is what turned it around, because then he did the handcuff escape in Boston, and he did it in about 1 to 5 minutes, and he invited the press. Houdini knew the effect of good PR. So he goes to the cop station, and he's like, tells all the press, I'm gonna break out of this police cell in, quickly. And he does, and all the press are like, whoa! So that's all over. That really skyrocketed his career.
There you go.
Here's the thing with the Doyle that he was like, he's like, just shut up. So rebuking a critic, accusing him of copying some other authors, he said, so please grip this fact with your cerebral tentacle. The doll and its maker are never identical.
Oh, man.
Look at Doyle being like rude there.
What a rhyme there.
right.
Yes. He's quite the man with words, right?
Speaking of rapping.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
And fact and fiction, real life, interesting. So Dr. Joseph Bell, the guy who kind of was inspiration for Sherlock, he did offer his services as a consultant in several police investigations, including Jack the Ripper, which was in 1888, which this show is kind of close to that time period. So Jack the Ripper could come into this show, which we don't really have that yet.
I mean, we've got one episode left.
Yeah, we got one episode left. Maybe season 2.
Maybe.
All right, and then I know I'm like, ooh, cool. We're almost at the end of the song, so I guess we'll have to cut the song. Because I was like, wait, I got a couple more, guys, because these were exciting. Something with the image of Sherlock Holmes, some of you guys may know this, and sometimes they addressed it on the show Sherlock. So never is there mention of the deerstalker hat, the cape he had, or the pipe he had. That was never in the books. Which is funny, because in the show Sherlock, he makes fun of, like, that's a horrible outfit, and then he wears it, So it came about from illustrators of the book, like the cover, and a couple actors who did live stage performances of him. And they did the pipe that way because it's more comfortable to have the curved pipe instead of like a regular one. Wow, it's like, what?
I like it.
Yeah. All right, and then also the phrase, elementary, my dear Watson, Doyle never wrote it. It was used by a stage performance, and Sherlock coined it in the stage show, and then that became a phrase. So, I was kind of bummed. I'm like, Doyle never wrote? Oh, well. And then it was in May 1891 that Sherlock had Moriarty, and they had the Sherlock Holmes meet his watery grave, and it was then a 3-year hiatus till I think he wrote more.
Right.
Anyway.
3 years? That doesn't seem like very long for there to be such a hiatus of a major character.
Yes.
Interesting. So that's like 1891 to 1894.
Yeah.
But yet this show is taking place
1901.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Once again, the timeline's all skewed.
No, this show is totally falling apart. Anyway, so now we'll get into the show, guys. Hope you like those. And load it up more, because I'm like, last week, I'm like, I don't
Very
have my
nice.
notes. Hope
Very
you guys
nice.
like those, right?
A return to form.
Yay! Okay. All right, and now we have left the great and mighty land of the Brits, which, funny timing of social events.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Anyway,
Wait.
right. And we go to Canada. And we have Mrs. Reed. She wakes up in the middle of the night. She's alone. Somebody's not in bed next to her. She's hearing weird noises and whispers. Okay. I don't know if they really had electricity the same way yet, but nobody gets a candle and walks around. This has been in other episodes too. I'm sorry. Any horror movie, everybody who walks, I'm going to walk around in the dark with my eyes shut. You're like, what are you doing? Take something. No, they do have fun. Well, they have the lantern flashlights. Yes. And the torch as well, it's funny. British people would call it a torch, but Houdini has it, and I forget what he called it in the other episode. Leave a comment if you remember what Houdini called it, and he had it in the episode when they're in the caves, and it was like the flashlight. And he's like, yeah, they're making these things. Do you remember that? And he talks about the early days of the flashlight. Frank's giving me this look like nope.
Light maker.
Smile and nod. Yeah.
Light maker.
Yeah.
That was what he called it?
And then Mrs. Reed discovers that her husband has been stabbed to the wall with swords. What do you guys think of that?
That was pretty
2 swords.
elaborate. Yeah, just impaled right on the, just hung him right up on the wall, like his name was Art.
Yep.
Given what we know happened, where we kind of figure out what happened in there, I'm just like, that certainly takes a tremendous amount of effort.
It takes a lot of effort to
strength.
well, if he was already dead, then you lift him up and put him up there. But still, that was an elaborate plan.
Right.
You could have done other ways and made it not quite so.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. And then we get the boat to the Grand Ole US of A. And Stratton does not have her sea legs. Not thrilled about it.
Right.
She's like, just like, don't come to America. 6 more days. Could you imagine taking that long to get to another country?
I know.
I mean, nowadays we're so spoiled. Like, plane flight. Get there in like max, maybe a day is the most.
Right.
Like 16 hours or something. And even that, you're not a full 24 per se.
Yeah, because it's different now to think like you're taking a cruise to kind of relax and get away from it all. But when you're actually on a ship as a mode of transportation to get from one place to another, and you need to do that, I could understand like that many days is just going to start driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just like the stay forever. And then Houdini pops up. He's a bit moody, obviously. We're not putting down his moodiness, but he is hiding his feelings, which I'm pretty sure, Ty, you were calling that one out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
We're not going to see him like, we're going to see him like, no, everything's totally fine. What are you guys talking about? What? Who's grieving?
Yeah. I don't think he went that far. He did in points. Points of the episode he did.
Sure.
But he was like, yeah, what about it?
But I just mean he's like, he's going to be moving on and just proceeding. Because we talked about that when we saw the next on segment, the fact that he was, like, basically joking around as if nothing happened. And so I think that's just this version and this portrayal of Houdini. That's his MO. That's his method of dealing with things.
But this is such a huge thing in his life. I mean, he's so close to his mom.
Thank you. Actually, I was like, wait, no,
No, please.
I was to our comments earlier, people. Thank you so much for writing comments on what you thought about the relationship between Houdini and his mother. I did have something I thought about it a different way that I was like, oh wait, okay, maybe they did such a. I mean, yes, he was very close to his mother, but maybe it was so heightened in the show because now it needs to show how important the loss was. Because I mean, it's been 9 episodes, but she hasn't been in every one.
Right.
So they almost probably had to heighten it more for us to show how much depth there was, so that when she died, it made more sense.
We realized the resonance and the impact.
Because maybe if this had been over 4 seasons, they might have like, good luck. We hope you get 4.
Yeah.
They might have like thinned it out and not done quite as heavily.
Sure.
And then I was like, all right, maybe it's not that weird. But that scene was a little awkward.
Yeah, when they do a little smooch and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Sorry.
But we do get that in this episode. So sorry, Frank. Continue.
No, but I felt like there was such an important relationship in his life that I felt like, I don't know, I felt like we just jumped so far ahead, even though he's kind of suppressing those feelings. He doesn't want to really deal with them.
And it's like he said, he's been grieving ever since the moment he found her body. So I think behind closed doors, I'm sure he was an absolute wreck. Yes. But he's not going to let Doyle and Stratton see that side of him, no matter who it was that died.
Yeah, and then also different people grieve differently too. So it's possible that he did everything behind closed doors, and now in public he's like, no, because I don't want to be constantly reminded of it.
Constantly a showman. Yeah.
He's always on top form. And then we get, what do you guys think of the Tesla versus Edison little banter with that Houdini brings up? Like, oh, we're gonna talk to Edison, and Houdini's one-liners of like, well, he stole it from Tesla.
You still owe him $50,000. Yeah,
that was funny. I liked it. And then we get over, and we get there, and the possibility of, oh no, wait, that was. When Doyle says, don't you want to have this device because you could have the possibility to talk to loved ones, I felt that was kind of a low blow. I mean, I know he meant it nicely.
Who said that?
Doyle said it to Houdini, like, don't you want to, but it was his tone of voice. Because he's like, don't you want to get to this thing or something? I forget how he said it, but he's like, so you could talk to loved ones. And then Houdini's like, all right, peace out, and walked away. But I was like, bad timing, because Stratton kind of goes, well, we're here to help. Like, she smoothed over that like burn. It's like, let me be the
right. Well, I think that was just him appealing to the thing that the one thing that Houdini might be able to rationalize with, you know.
A tone of voice, Doyle. Tone of voice. You know. He seems so mean. Back to our discussion of like who's meaner and stuff like that. All right, and then we they point out that they're gonna help Mrs. Reed. How did they get on this case?
The paperboy. It gave them a little. He in his little dinghy. He caught up to the ship and tossed out the paper.
Did anybody notice that? I kind of sitting there going, "Okay, cool. They're helping people. That's great." Wait, why are you going to the United States to help them? Like, how did you know? You guys were in England. Like, yes, you were going anyways, but like, isn't this out of your jurisdiction? Kind of a moment.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about the question of jurisdiction.
Yeah, like you're a Scotland Yard cop in the United States.
Right,
I mean, she's not wearing her uniform.
Right.
Which, speaking of uniform, someone on Twitter, I like their point out. They said, if she's the only female on the force, how come she got such a nice fitted uniform? But I guess if they only have to make one, it's not that big of a deal.
That's true. Yeah.
But there are places where they make only men's uniforms, so she could have worn like a boy's one. I says because she would rock the pantsuit better than the boys would. That's why she needed to wear the dress.
Naturally.
But it's so weird when she meets like the amateur paranormal investigator there when they get there. It feels like, oh yeah, we reached out to you because you've done this. I feel like Doyle's no longer considered just like an author, but all of a sudden he's like a sleuth and a crime solver.
Right.
What? When did this happen?
This whole new
After 8 episodes, that's when
that's exactly.
We know who you are now.
We know all about you.
Well, okay, among the spiritualist community, Doyle probably by now is maybe more well known, so maybe that's. But yes, it was one moment you're like, how did you guys hear about this guy?
Yes.
A ghost. They heard it through the necrophone. And then they're like, so they get over there, they meet Mrs. Reed, then they find out she's the subject of abuse. And the standard pattern of abuse, she kind of puts it in denial and like not talking about it. But I like how Stratton kind of was like, all right, let's be real, girl.
Right.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah, it's not like we're trying to arrest you because you could have. It's like, look, like we get why this might have happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for the one line that she did throw out, it's like, he was my husband, he can do what he please. Like, whoa.
Right. I mean, I know that's partially time period, but no. Like, there's a line. I mean, I understand loyalty and everything, but there is a line where you're like, no. I think whose phone is it?
I think it might be yours.
Is it your phone?
But
if our phones
I don't think people really respected lines like that in 1901.
No. All right. So if you guys are listening on iTunes, if our phones are too close to the mics, they make funny noises. Or at least I hear it. We're hearing something over the airwaves. It's like, how can we not make more jokes? But yeah, that one was so. I mean, I get that was the mindset, but actually on Vikings they did that too. They were like, the British were like, women are the man's property, but the free people essentially, similar to Game of Thrones idea or something. The Vikings were like, you know, they're essentially equal, maybe not super equal, but pretty darn close. So. That was rough to hear that line. She's like, well, he can do what he wants. And you're just like, sweetheart. But oh well.
2016 guys can be like, stand up for yourself. Yeah. You know,
hey, even Stratton was
didn't you hear Lemonade?
Well, Stratton makes a point of like, that doesn't mean he can hit you.
Right.
Even if you're his property, he can't hit you. So, anyway. And then we get to meet the people at the house, and we meet Millie, the empath, Thomas Edison. And I like that Doyle was such a fan, and Edison was a dick.
Oh, yeah. He has no time for fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like... But Doyle takes it in stride. He's kind of like, all right.
Right. Well, and Edison was a famously prickly person.
Yes.
I don't know, I'm trying to think like Doyle. I mean, just a world-renowned author.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, well, guess what? You were an inspiration for a character in one of my novels."
You could say thank you.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
Or he could just be like, "Oh, I didn't know." That's a better way to be like, "I don't have time for fiction," because he probably didn't know about it, and not necessarily like, and you're like, "Dude, you're rude." But then we meet his assistant, Rustum, and I was like, "Random assistant." And then did you catch the amateur investigator's name we were talking about?
Roland Carson.
Roland, thank you. I'm all Roland. I didn't catch his name. Roland. There we go. Our amateur investigator who's like, oh my gosh, you guys are like legit paranormal people. I'm just an amateur. And then we learn that the house is haunted by the Turner family, that 10 years ago the man went on a rampage and killed everybody in that family and then jumped off a cliff. That's good. Good backstory for a haunting,
Sure,
you know?
sure.
And with an axe, right? It was pretty much an axe going around. And then apparently he's the one who haunts the house. Dun, dun, dun. And Doyle is so excited to see this necrophone, and he is like, kid in a candy store, right?
Oh yeah, when Edison takes off the little cloth to reveal, and he's like, "Ah, do it, talk to the dead."
And then he's like, how does it work? And then did anybody catch the weird look that Edison had to his assistant?
Well, like, I really thought that they were really, really tipping their hand right off the bat. Like, oh, Edison is definitely full of shit, and everyone's going to pick up on it immediately. Like, I really thought that everyone was going to be like, I thought that Doyle was just going to be completely crushed and, like, the wind taken out of his sails. Like, oh, this guy's clearly a fraud. But
Stratton noticed.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought they were really hitting those notes so hard.
They were, because like Edison doesn't
'cause he's
look
just
to
like,
his assistant. The assistant's like, you should say something.
Electromagnetic waves, clearly.
Yeah. Suspicious.
Right? Where are your guys' cold reading skills now?
I know, right? It's because they're starstruck.
Right, that's exactly right.
But I wonder how much of that is because later on Edison talks about that he was successful once, but he's never been able to replicate it. That he
That's
keeps
a good
trying.
scientist thing to say.
It's such
I did do it once, but I haven't repeated it.
It's such a convenient, yeah. Like I swear I could do it when no one's watching.
Yeah.
I just when you guys aren't here, I'm just talking up a storm.
You know, yeah. And then he was like, I want one in every home. And I'm like, well, sort of. You get the telephone eventually. They had the phone already, so that's all you do, but not what you think. And then we get Houdini's over in Queens, New York, with the funeral. And he is not digging the type of funeral service because he's like, my mom wasn't religious. He's talking to his brother. They don't really specify which brother, and I'm pretty sure he had more than one, so that was kind of interesting. Yeah. But I think there's a younger, I forget the order. Doesn't matter. But there's brother. They don't really brother. And he's just like, mom wasn't even that religious. And he's like, it's super religious ceremony. And who are all these people that like weren't around? Then the brother's like, well, you would know them if you weren't gone. It's like she wanted to go to get our little sibling rivalry. And jealous. Course. Well, of course, if he's that close with his mom, makes sense that the other brother would be like, I'm just mad at you.
Sure, and then there's that woman that he catches just staring
Creepy
daggers
lady.
at him. Yeah,
you're like weirdo. And so he's like, I can't do it, and he walks away. Which that I kind of get though too, of like in that moment of just like I can't.
Well, and I liked his rationale that she believed that life was meant to be lived,
Celebrate
and
it.
that we should throw a party in memory of her, in honor of her life, rather than mourning her death.
Have you guys ever been to one of those? I went to one. It was like an open house, and so they had the person's things, like important items for them, and pictures, and it was just like a tables and food, and you hung out and talk, and it wasn't like party, but it was more of a celebration of life rather than
wasn't quite
somber
as somber,
funeral.
yeah.
And I was kind of like, I like that. That's a good idea as an alternative. But I agree with Houdini's logic, and he should know his mother better than anybody else.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, well, even look at the funeral. Everybody's just dressed in black.
Yeah.
Houdini not. Just a little spark of color amongst all that.
That's his personality, right?
Oh, look at that.
Sparky color and all their blackness.
And you feel like this is episode 9. I just kept on noticing the hair. I kept on looking at Michael Weston's hair.
He did talk about that towards the end, it's really his hair.
Oh, I didn't even think.
Yeah, because he was saying at the very beginning, if you guys don't know, Michael Weston said this on Twitter, because I asked, other people asked, we're like, so your hair, we're just curious if it was a perm, if it was a weave, or your hair. And he said at the beginning it was like a perm and a weave, and as it goes to the end it becomes this real hair. But that makes sense because if his hair was short to start with, it's like, well, I can't do anything with it. Like, if it's your length right now, we can't really perm that.
No.
You know, it's like, but then it grows out. So I did notice too. I was like looking at it. Good head of curly hair. Mm-hmm. And then we get back to the assistant and Stratton. I'm like,
Avari?
Huh?
Avari?
Yeah. Uh-huh. I don't know. I like the assistant guy, but Avari and Stratton, and he's talking about he's believing that he really wants to believe in the power of the device because he wants to talk to his wife who died 4 years prior. Aww. But then it's cute because Stratton got to share her moment about her husband dying, and that was kind of nice, I think, for her to talk to somebody about that and say it out loud.
Right.
And a great discussion about moving on, huh?
And yeah, I think that was the first time that anyone had really obviously like broached that subject with her, like the possibility that, you know, like you can move on and you're allowed to meet someone else, you know?
Yeah, she's like, maybe, no. Yes, you have, and his name is Houdini.
And I feel like she looks at it a little bit differently because because Benjamin, as far as she knows, was murdered.
It's a different situation.
I think with her, it's different. I think, she was like, well, Karishma, she may have passed away, due to illness, so you can move on. But Benjamin was murdered, so it's a little bit more sort of a subject for me.
Need to get the vengeance.
Yeah.
But it's like the line 2 words where he says, well, once you get the answers from Benjamin, you'll be able to move on. And her point is, like, if you know that they exist and you could talk to them on the other end of this necrophone, how would you ever be able to move on? Because they're just so readily accessible to you.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be weird because you need to be able to break away and cut those final ties because they aren't around anymore. And then we get Millie. She saw someone in the mirror, and there's the wind, and the Bible opens up to a page in Genesis. And then I like that Stratton's like, well, that's what it means. And then
well, she very clearly, and I'll get to this because I took issue with this, but she very clearly saw Turner in the mirror.
Yes.
Yeah.
She did. And they go, well, maybe it's Mrs. Turner because of the passage in the Bible. And Stratton points out there's an open window. So she channeled Houdini there. And she was like, no. Guys, no. And then the investigator's like, I heard something. Because then they go over the device. This is definitely that. When you want to hear something, you do. Power of suggestion. Many episodes we've talked about.
Well, and I feel like so much liberty is being taken with that concept. Like because I really was curious, and I think we saw the exact same thing in the very first episode, where it's like, oh, how did they see a very clearly physical manifestation of a ghost? And like in this case, how did she very clearly see this man that was Turner? Like, I don't really buy that that's just like, oh, you're just seeing what you wanted to see, you know?
And how does she know what he looks like, too?
Right.
Yeah.
We know because of the flashback.
Yes.
But yeah, and so I feel like that, I don't know, I feel like there's a little too much credit being given to the power of suggestion. If it's just some, like, darting movement that you maybe see out of the corner of your eye, out of your peripheral vision, that's one thing. But when you're seeing a fully formed, like, guy with facial hair holding a weapon...
So is the house haunted?
Right there behind you. Maybe, could be, right?
Yeah, I don't know, because I feel like that's the one thing I struggle with the show, in terms of what they want to do. Do they want to just try to be realistic, but they're not being realistic certainly with the timeline and their lives. So then if you're going to introduce this, if you're using power of suggestion as a way just to kind of not really have the fantastical in there all the time, that's going to get a little tiresome.
That's just, it's just a way to like throw actual ghosts in there and then just say like, oh no, it was just a figment of their imagination.
Well, she believes it was him, and that could be the case how this show does it, of maybe not everybody is unanimous in what they believe it was, so that'd be their like wiggle room on it. Be like, well, she believes it is him,
right?
And then it's up to us, the viewer, to decide. And Houdini shows up and messes with them, of course. And he's like, it's a glorified Ouija board, which I thought that was pretty fun. And they're like, what you said, Ty, of like, yeah, he's like, I have been grieving for her. I want to focus on living. And it's like, yep, you left your family for a reason. Because he's like, no, I don't want to be around my family.
Right.
Resurrect me.
I love that. Bring back Holmes. I thought that was really funny.
And I love that Doyle's like, Houdini, where are you? They're totally brothers by this point.
Exactly.
Like, you brat.
And he says he created a wind tunnel to get the pages turning in there. But and then you get it to stop at just the right page to be able to kind of sell.
Right.
And like, all right, come on.
Right.
Mrs. Turner held the page. She's like, wait, stop.
Right there.
Yep. And then we find out a little bit about Wallbridge, and then Houdini's like, he researched them, and Stratton's not getting in touch, but then she's being kind of weird about it. Mm-hmm. Which we get to later. But I was like, dude, you're being weird. Why are you being weird? And then we get to... Now, did you guys know this was going to be a dream? I was disappointed it was a dream.
Yeah, as was I.
Yeah, me too. Right. Yeah, I didn't think it was.
What did you guys think it was a dream? Leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. Yeah, Stratton's like, she hears her name, Penny. She goes to investigate, and the machine's working on its own. Oh my goodness. And it talks back to her, and like it sees her, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then she's like, who murdered you? And you're not meant to know. And like, that was really interesting. And then, boom, it's a dream. You're like, damn it.
Time to get you.
You know, that's just only time that's okay is in Final Destination, because then all weird shit happens after that.
That is true. That was a good use of it.
That's the only time you're like, it's a dream. Guess what? Doesn't make it any better.
Right, exactly.
It just gets worse. I've seen all of them. Have you seen all of them? I love those movies.
Pretty fun.
On my notes as I typed out, what's a dream? Boo.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
And then she has the chair move in her room and is like, whoa, what is that? Okay, so then I was a little happy that I'm like, okay, something weird happened.
We know this isn't, unless it's a dream within a dream, unless we're just inceptioning this episode.
And then she's like, hey, wait a minute, which, speaking of that, go watch Paprika, which is, it's an anime movie, and there are actual visuals in Inception that are taken from that movie.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the director is Satoshi Kon, and there's a lot of movies that take from his stuff. I just recently watched this awesome video on Twitter. I'll link you guys. So we'll link it on Twitter that there's this video talking about that, and there's scenes from Inception. Like, Inception has, like, only, like, 2 dreams within a dream, and then in, like, Paprika, there's, like, the person's narrating. He's like, I don't even know how many at this point. It's like there's so many layers. So, side note and cool weird stuff, because we tell you about cool weird stuff on this show,
like Brody Quest.
Such as Brody Quest. Yes, thank you. And Brody Quest, guys, because we were talking about Adrian Brody's Houdini film, which you guys should totally watch. I was gonna say maybe we should put Brody Quest on low in the background, and we can play. We'll have the audio for Brody Quest. Sure. And thanks to our amazing engineer who showed that to us, and on Instagram. And I think it was just on Instagram I posted a video. I posted a little bit of our reactions to that.
Yeah.
So go watch on Instagram. So you can hear this. This is Brody Quest, guys. This will be our soundtrack.
Moving on.
Anyways.
It's totally appropriate. Sure.
Totally appropriate. Go watch it. It's very funny. So we get the dream. Then she goes and wakes up Houdini and Doyle. And I like Houdini's like, she's all, I had a dream. He's all, was I in it?
The second she said I was having a much different dream, you knew instantly where his mind went.
He's like, oh yeah? And he has his shirt open a little bit.
I love like the hair button down here. That was so great.
Well, and even before she went to bed, I mean, he put the hardcore press on her. Like, you should be alone.
Shouldn't be alone.
Yeah. There's a poltergeist
He's trying
out there. Hard. And then she's like, oh, all of a sudden now you believe in God.
Yes. And then Doyle comes out, and Houdini's like, look, it's a man in a nightie. Making fun of his night shirt. Aw, poor Doyle.
Sleepy Doyle.
Don't you wish we lived back in the age where we were wearing night shirts? We're just like, yeah, we can do that.
Sure.
Would you wear a night shirt?
Why don't you wear a night shirt?
Absolutely. Night shirts are comfortable as hell.
Would you wear the cap, too?
The cap? Maybe.
Well, if it's cold, that kind of makes sense, because a lot of your heat exits through your head. So.
Oh, that's a good point.
So that makes sense if they're in places that are cold. I'm like England and stuff.
You know.
All right, and then they come into the room, they see the chair move, and then Houdini's like, I'm trying to prove why. The floor's tilted. It's this. I like that he didn't immediately say it's magnets. I thought he was. That was my first thought.
Always magnets. But that's what it actually was.
Yes.
So that couldn't have been his first guess. But
or he could have been like, there's something else going on.
Every attempt to try and prove some sort of trickery just shut down.
Yeah. It was kind of fun for him.
Marble stayed completely still.
It's like it's gonna move. No.
Well, shit.
He's like, oh.
Because it seems like anytime we've seen in the series so far, when there's something kind of fantastical that happens, there's always that look. They cut to Houdini where he's kind of like the for just that one shot.
I need to prove it. Yep. And then they all go over to Edison and the machine, and then they're like, they all hear Fallcroft Point. Fallcroft Point. And they're all like, oh, okay, let's go. And I noticed that everybody went except for the assistant and the amateur magician, the amateur investigator. So that's a good thing if you guys didn't notice that. So you investigate, and I wrote a note. I'm like, where's the assistant? Mr. Avari.
Interesting. I didn't
and
even pick
immediately
up on
he was at the bottom of the cliff.
Yep.
Well, because you're like, it's everybody let's go moment, and you're like, there's people.
Except, right.
And those are the people that are back.
And Fallcroft Point is also where Mr. Turner chucked himself off of after his rampage.
And dude, that constable was a jerk. He was a jerk. He was not having anything of anybody.
Nope.
I felt he was super suspicious.
Oh, no, I just thought he was just a dick.
Jerk. I know. But then I wonder, I'm like, maybe he's in on something because he's like not giving in to anything they're saying. I don't know.
I didn't pick up on that. I was just like, oh, like people were really jerky back then.
Well, in Canada, Canada of all places, I thought their constables would be a little nicer. No.
I'm not your buddy, guy.
Where's their mounts? They don't have the.
He was in a Royal Mountie.
Yeah, he was in a Mountie. That's what I think of when I think of Canada Police. And then we get Doyle and Houdini, and they're like, we shouldn't be alone right now, which is a good point. It's a horror movie. Don't say we'll be right back.
Right.
That was a bad choice.
Of course.
And Doyle notices red dirt on the shoe, and they're like, So finally some investigations going on, guys.
Yeah, the bruises on the wrists indicating a struggle.
Yep, and the cuts and everything. They're like, what's going on?
And the fact that, like, clearly he's in far too good a condition to have been chucked from that height.
Yes, it's like,
Right.
And then we get Houdini. Houdini goes, there's a woman who's been following me. And then there was a nice little fight where they had a little bit of a bromance fight of you're running away. Houdini's telling Doyle, you're running away from your wife and you need to know and accept, like, she's alive. And then Doyle's like, oh, yeah, he says, sorry. I'm like, wait, that was the other person saying it. But Doyle's saying to Houdini, Houdini, the other way. Houdini, stop planning for her death.
Right.
Yes.
I like that they kind of had that fight. I felt they both had to say stuff.
Sure. And Houdini acknowledges, like, or Doyle rather tells Houdini that knowing that someone died and accepting that they're dead are two different things.
Thank you. That's what it was. I'm all accepting. Knowing and accepting are different. Yeah. Thank you. Then we get Houdini and Edison kind of having their little thing, and he's like, did you tamper your device? So they have a little bit of a tiff.
Sure.
And Edison's like, he's trying to prove because he wants closure, and he also lost his mom. So then Houdini and him get a nice little bonding moment. So we have the husband moment, and then we have the mom moment. And but then the machine turns on by itself, and we hear Eddie. So we hear Harry's real name and supposedly his mother's voice. Right. See, that never was explained though.
No, it's
ever.
true.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, that's
so there
a good
you go.
point.
The show had that, and they all were like, I don't know what that is. Then we get Houdini and Shren, and then they're like, it's the power of suggestion. And then he has that discussion. He's like, so what did you do after? Because she's like, you've been drinking. And he's like, yeah, duh. And,
right. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah. He's like, well, what did you do after your husband died? You drink? You became a cop and really digging at her and getting that right. And then he goes, you stop looking for answers, which is like, ooh, there's the reveal that she didn't want to really contact the Walbridge, because she's like, I don't want to know, which is true. It can be really hard to know.
Sure.
But then they get their aw moment when they're both like, you're the strongest person I know. And then she has a, it's all right not to be that strong all the time. And then I was like waiting for it. I'm like, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it did. I was like, yes. Yes. I knew it. And they kissed. That's my gesture, guys, for anybody listening. Which we had somebody listening, and then they're like, okay, I want to watch now, so thank you for watching it. Because I'm like, I wonder what we sound like versus what we watch, because we are a goofy bunch, but that's why I think it's fun at 11 o'clock.
But yeah,
show.
nine episodes in the making, of course.
For sure.
Was it everything you wanted it to be, that kiss? After 9 episodes, you're like, okay.
No, I think it was what it needed to be, though. I think, like, this was like, everyone was like, oh shit, they're doing it. But, like, of course, Doyle comes right in.
Yes, and he sees that awkwardness, and you could cut it with a knife.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He goes, we gotta go, guys.
Because I feel like this kiss was just the heat of the moment kiss.
Yes, that was not him being smarmy or trying to take advantage, but she kissed him back. Just saying.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that too. I had notes on that later. But yes, it was very nice too. It felt genuine, which was refreshing.
It was very organic. Yeah, sure.
You're like, aww. And then the red dirt's in the cellar. And then he goes to apologize for the kiss. And he's like, it's not going to happen again. And then she's like, well, that's fine. I'm like, lies. I wrote lies.
It took her a long time to say good after he said that.
Both of them are lying to each other. And just admit that you guys want to be together. I was so annoyed. I'm like, I hate that. It's one of the, like, with people too. It's like, can you just say what you're really thinking? Because you obviously both want that. And guess what? Lying doesn't help anybody. Doesn't. I actually put that in improv scene in for our acting class thing. I'm like, why don't we just cut the bullshit and let's just like talk about this. Sorry, man, this is a swearing episode. I'm sorry, guys. I went to the beach today. Maybe I'm just swearing like a sailor. I don't know. Like I said, goofy show. Anyway, so then they discover a hidden room and blood and lots of blood. And they discover the electromagnets. So there they are.
I want a magnet that huge. That'd be awesome.
Gigantic.
Right?
Yeah.
They're like football size, big things.
No wonder it was able to move a whole chair through a floor.
And if they did two, and you can, then you'd make sure you need to keep your arms at the same distance.
I just have that stuck right on my fridge at home. Just
There you go. That's a good plan. And then they find out that Avari probably discovered it, and that's why he's dead. And they find the grave, Maxwell, and then you're like, why is the grave in the basement? And this is where it gets kind of dark.
The baby's grave of Ms. Reed earlier.
Thank you. I'm like, the Maxwell, because y'all know who Maxwell is.
You know.
And then they're like, the influenza baby. The baby died of influenza. I was like, not connected, but I'm all cancer puppy.
Oh, man.
We were on the Magicians, Ty and I. I know, right? Well, I had it the other night. We were talking about something animal, and I totally was thinking cancer puppy. I'm like, oh, nobody watched the Magicians. You don't know what we're talking about. Right. If you haven't watched Magicians, go watch that show. That was a good show. Which this one's also excellent. Anyway, so we find out Doyle kind of investigates the body, which at first you're like, oh, why are you digging it up? But I almost thought it's not going to actually be the baby.
That's exactly what I thought.
I thought something else would be buried there.
Really,
it's a great
really
spot
thought.
to hide it.
Mainly just because I was like, oh, they're not going to go there.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
You're like, oh no, he dug it up. And then there's like the head, the skull, it's been beat. And you're just like,
At a month old, it was only a month old.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, I was definitely pretty shocked by that.
Yeah. So you find out that Emmett, Mr. Reed, found a love letter, and she's like, I don't want the police because I feared they would kill me, and he killed the baby, which is sad. And then Mrs. Reed, they're like, we know the poltergeist thing was faked, and they accuse her of having a lover, but she does not admit who it is. She's just like, but they all have their suspicions.
Right.
And then we get everybody listening to Device, and it has a name. It calls out Carson. And he, totally freaks out. Man, as we learned on the show, don't freak out. Just makes you look guilty.
Exactly. Just play cool,
Guilt
man.
right over the forehead.
Play cool, man.
Yeah, you just go, why does it say my name? I
Weird.
don't know. That's so weird. I don't know why. But no, he's like, oh my gosh. That's happened somewhere else on this show, too. I can't remember the exact moment. But somebody freaks out.
The second it was indicated that someone, they just... Right.
Or even just between the three, our little hero group, they say something and then you're just like, well, you were Captain Obvious, weren't you?
Yeah, his motivations really frustrated me because if you're gonna kill this person and make it seem like it's a paranormal incident, then why would you go and recruit some of the world's most, at least according to him, the world's most renowned paranormal investigators?
At that point, yeah, you're just asking to get caught.
Yeah.
And a cop. You invited a cop.
I come to try to solve this murder that I know
Please,
I did.
investigate me.
And then
I think I was that good. You won't figure it out.
Yeah, and then also why stage the thing where they lead him right to the cliff to find the body? Let the water wash it away, wash away the mud or whatever. Yes. Take away all the traces. Why? I don't understand that.
It was a little bit stretch. That one came by, and you're like, what? Okay. He freaks out, and they kind of scare him with this fake stuff going on, which is great.
That was intense, yeah.
Yes. And then, do you think the knife was a bit much? Did it get the job done? Yes, it did.
Right.
So shut up. I love that little banter. That was great. Which is true. It's one of those. Did it work? It worked.
Well.
And then you find out he killed him by accident, though. Which then they should have just said that. Guess what? You say it's by accident, then you're. But then maybe it'd come out that he was a lover, and then that would be a problem and scandal, but you didn't murder him.
Well, yeah, but the way that he strung him up, that was no accident.
Sure.
No, beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it's like, guys, if you had just gone earlier, you probably would have solved half of these problems, but whatever. Then we wouldn't have an episode now, would we? No. Then the machine freaks out. Again, we hear Harry's mom call out his name, his traditional name, and Millie's like, they've all come through. And that was interesting, which they don't really explain that either.
Right.
And then Edison breaks it, and Doyle's like, no! And Houdini just looks so damn.
Right.
He doesn't freak out. He can't let anybody know he's disappointed, but he's like...
That was the one thing that was at least giving him the tiniest speck of hope.
Yeah, because he's like, wait.
That Doyle might be right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like Stratton was saying that if you knew that this was possible to really contact them, that it would be hard to move on. I feel like if it was real, man, Houdini would never move on.
No.
Right, that's true. Yeah. And you're exactly
well, he kind of
right.
never did. Because he constantly in his life tried to get seances to contact his mother.
Yeah, and even after his
and
death.
prove them all wrong.
Yeah, have his wife every year try to contact him to prove that those were...
Oh, wow.
If it was possible to contact from beyond, he would be the one to do it.
Yep. And then, of course, they talk about it after, which is cool. I'm glad they talk about it. And then Houdini's like, Edison faked it. And they're like, guys, stop. and he has a discussion, and he says to Doyle, you know, don't quit on your wife. Try the doctors in New York. And then Doyle has a really sad but good point that, like, having hope is exhausting. Right. To be excited and hopeful and then be destroyed every night. You kind of understand and sympathize with him that you're like, yeah, I guess it would be hard to, like, hold that torch for your wife long.
Yeah, in that limbo state. Because it's like, if she was dead, you at least can accept that you know what it is and you can move on. As hard as it may be, but just in this kind of...
like the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
I forget now. I'm like, now that we're actually talking about it, I looked it up and I forgot. But there was that case in the news where a woman, she was in a coma for, like, I want to say like 20 years or something nuts, like a long time. Like, her body even wasn't, she didn't look like her anymore because her body just kind of like...
It had atrophied.
Yeah, just bad. And it was her family who was trying to keep her alive. And the husband's like, it's not her anymore. You need to let her go.
Right.
That, like, discussion we've had on the show of, like, so when is that? Like, but again... If she's in a coma, she's not getting fluids or food. There's no IV. I don't buy it. I'm sorry.
Oh, right.
That's the one thing I don't buy because I've been around in a couple hospitals lately, and someone just for like a month, you need IVs, you need different fluids and all these different things just to keep you alive. And she doesn't have any of that. She's just getting a blood transfusion. I'm like,
right.
All right, there's some scientific liberties on the show, and for those listening, I made a very incredulous face. I was like, no. All right. Then we get Stratton. She gets a telegram back. So this is our little montage at the end, wrapping people up. So you're like, oh, boy. And you're looking excited.
No, I was just excited at what you're going to say next.
Okay. And then we get Houdini sitting by the broken machine, and he looks so sad. He's like a sad little puppy. You're like, oh, his dreams have been crushed. And then Stratton hears the big reveal, which Frank totally called. Stratton goes to meet at the mill alone, which I was like, whoa. Didn't tell the boys where she was going and goes to this place alone.
Right.
She could be murdered. And Benjamin is alive. Yes. It is that one.
Yes.
100%. And Frank called it. Did you say it loud? That was your prediction, right?
You're like, yeah. Look at that.
He's like, I think he's going to be alive.
I'll see you in the writer's room for season 2, guys.
There we go.
I love how he's alive, and he faked his death, and I'm like, why? And she's like, why? And he's an undercover agent, and he had been exposed, and so he had to go dark. Which you're like,
it was a rope trick.
Okay, fine.
Right. And it makes sense, because her being a part of his life is only going to make her a liability both to him and to herself.
Yeah, but he should have said it that way because he's like, well, what kind of life would it leave? And then she's like, well, what kind of life did you leave me with? I'm sorry, I'd be the girl that I'm like, no, I'd go with you. I'll go in hiding with you. I'd rather be with you and in hiding than think you died and
but
be
it's
crushed.
so much harder to hide 2 people than it is to hide one person.
I know, but he's not going to say that. But yes, this is true. This is true. And then, of course, I called it. The book was brought up again.
Oh, yeah.
They took all your stuff. He's like, did they take everything? She's like, well, no, not your copy of Tom Sawyer. I lent it to Houdini. Well, Houdini stole it, but still. She's like, I'll let you borrow it. So, I was glad they mentioned that again because it was one of those they made such a big deal about. It's like, you have to at least mention it.
Right. Well, and I think that was just to facilitate him going like, oh, you guys have become really close. Huh?
And then she's like, whoa, you cannot even talk. Especially if she thinks he's dead.
Sure.
But so he must have been at least having it. Well, I guess Nigel maybe noticed something and reported back to him. But I mean, to know how close they are, I mean, he's got to been.
He's been following her.
Yeah,
because he said other things. He's like, I saw this happen. So he's been following her.
Right.
And he's like, I tried so hard not to fall in love with you, which I'm like, that's almost romantic. But now I'm kind of mad at you of like what he did to her. And he's like, okay, you need to stop this. Their kiss. I did not like their kiss. Their kiss was weak.
Sure.
Weak sauce. It was just like the old movies of like peck and I'm not really kissing you, like lips touching apart, and then he's gone again. It didn't. I didn't feel any passion on it. It didn't feel
right.
Maybe on her end.
I feel like it was more to me. Yeah, to me it just felt like, oh, like this is what we do because we were a couple.
Yeah, no love there.
But do you wonder, like, at this point, as they're talking about, like, once you find out, get the answer from Benjamin, you'll be able to move on. Now that she hasn't answered that Benjamin is alive, can she move on? Or the fact that he's still alive, she can't move on because she feels like she needs to wait for him?
I don't know. I feel like the question of if Benjamin is alive or not has been answered, but I feel like so many more questions have been risen in its stead that I can't imagine she's satisfied.
And she didn't hug him. See, I would think you'd be like run into his arms. Okay, we have a couple of things, then we'll get into predictions real quick. Houdini at the gravesite, and he prays in Hebrew and cries. Oh, that was super touching. And he leaves her photo there, which was sweet and sad, but then that's kind of him letting go and not holding on to that photo.
Sure.
And then we get the creepy music / noise, and we see the weird girl again. And we don't know who that is. All right, time for predictions.
Yeah. Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
People listening, Ty makes the funniest face. It's time for predictions. He is so excited. He's ear-to-ear smiles. He's
all
like,
sorts of
yay!
lights and special effects and such.
All right, so Frank, I think your question was a good springboard for predictions of what will she do next. What do you think she will do now that she knows her husband is alive?
Well, I feel like you can't leave this Houdini thing not being unaddressed. So I feel like they're going to have to deal with it again next episode. But it's tough. I mean, she's had this question about her husband, at least pursuing vengeance, pursuing what the real answer is. Now knowing that he's really alive and can't be with her until he figures out what the deal is. I feel like there's going to be a talk. I feel like we'll see another kiss between Houdini and Stratton next episode.
Oh, in the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the season finale.
The next last episode of the season,
Yep.
I'd
love to say it's a cliffhanger. We should have a cliffhanger.
That's what I'm
episode.
thinking.
Yeah.
It'll probably be.
I'm thinking, yeah, like, I think the thing that my mind went to is Stratton kind of going off to try and find Benjamin, or maybe trying to help him, or somehow basically Houdini Doyle being here and Stratton being like forcibly removing herself from Scotland Yard, from Houdini Doyle, like just kind of going on her own adventure, and or maybe Houdini and or Doyle being captured in some sort of way.
Ooh.
We see in next week's season finale that there's something like 47 people have been killed.
Yep.
So there's some serious stuff going down.
Body count. Yep.
Would you guys be more excited though if like Houdini and Doyle at least have been a little bit more actively involved in this whole Stratton and her Benjamin and the mystery?
It did seem kind of like, for such a big and such an elaborate and such an involved story, it feels like it's been just kind of like it just happened to play out this way. Like I feel like there hasn't really been any active.
Well, Houdini did when he was checking in on that telegram.
Oh, right.
That was active, because then he's like, "You're not actually doing anything."
Right. I feel like.
And then I almost felt he sent the telegram, so when she got it, she was kind of surprised, like it actually went through, like she had gave up.
Houdini sent?
I thought he had done more. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like if you loved him and then you found out you think he's dead and he's not dead, I think she's gonna be kind of mad at him for a little bit.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Almost not necessarily like I'm done with you, but it make Houdini a little more appealing.
Sure.
Be like, I need a shoulder to cry on, and maybe I'll kiss you too.
Or just your shoulder. I'll just smooch your shoulder for you.
She's like, mwah, shoulder. Shoulder kiss. Shoulder little. Anyway. I'd be fun that they hook up again, because it's one of those, obviously you guys have chemistry, though technically Houdini didn't marry her or anything, or even, well, we don't, he married very young, so I gave a I don't know.
Doyle watch in the closet.
Through the keyhole.
I think it'll be a cliffhanger ending. I really do hope they get a season 2, and then that gets resolved, and more with this show, because it's so fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't really have enough. I don't think I have any more, because it's like the next one's the end for this one, so that's kind of it. All right, let people know where they can find you. I guess we're at the end, guys.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Twitter at HappyGoJackie, and check me out every Tuesday night at 10 o'clock with my improv team Max at IO West.
Woo.
You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, pretty much every form of social media at Ty Matthews PMA. Various other after shows, including Monday Night Raw, American Ninja Warrior, and Lucha Underground, and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Saturdays, 4 p.m. KDOC, U2 America, Tough TV, Fight TV, all that good stuff.
That's a long list. And I was going to say, Frank didn't even bother. I'm like, you mentioned your improv, which is fantastic. I'm like, wait, what about your shows, too?
Oh, that's right. I do stuff here, too.
Soaps.
He has a lot.
Soaps.
Yeah.
Get them soap after shows.
And my name's Kari Lane. You can find me online on Twitter and Instagram at Kari D Lane. That's KARIDLANE. And on Monday nights, I'm with Frank at Box Office Breakdown. This show, Hunters, which we only maybe have like 1 or 2 more episodes, starting up Dead of Summer, and Vikings on Wednesdays. Just so you guys know, we will be on Tuesday next week because Monday is the 4th of July, so we will be closed here at the studio. So we are going to be Tuesday at 11. So same time, different day. But same place? Yeah. Make sure to like, subscribe, thumbs up, leave the comments. We do love reading your comments down below. And Twitter, keep the discussion up. Thank you so much for reaching out. We really appreciate it. And it's great to interact with you guys and be like, oh, wait, there's actually people watching out there. Thank you. It validates our existence. Again, thank you so much for watching. It's a pleasure doing the show. And we'll see you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.